Morning, everyone. My name is Paul Beyer from GAI Insights, and today, this is December 5th. We're working on our GenAI executive briefing. This is where we discuss and rate the top news items by our team of AI analysts. We rate each article essential, important, or optional for the AI leader at companies. Ankaj, you want to start?
Sure, Paul. Thank you. So the first news item that we have for today is around Mistral. So Mistral, they have raised $487 million round from A16Z and a few other investors.
Yeah, I would go for. I'd actually go for essential on this one, just because it's it's in Paris. It's well funded. I think any global organization ought to be aware of it.
I agree. And in fact, they've made incredible progress when you consider that they were founded in May, I want to say.
Yeah.
5 months ago, 6 months ago. And, Julio, Adam, others, I don't know if you agree, but they seem to be already at the level of recognition of Llama 2.
I was shaking my head to think this idea they talk about a unicorn, this $1 billion valuation. And now we're having 6-month unicorns all the time. It's incredible. They're at 2 billion valuation in 7 months.
Well, they've done a lot. They've released a model that's getting a lot of attention, and as John pointed out,
I'm not saying it's not well due. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, it is extraordinary.
Yeah. But have we seen much on the customer front, or is this just a lot of momentum with an ex-DeepMind firm playing the OpenAI of Europe angle?
It's hard to say who's using them. The model is really good, and I think it shows just an interest in, this article and some of the other articles we'll see today show an interest in funding or in the efforts to try to keep to create competition to the entrenched players, let's say.
Great. So it sounds like essential. Amanda, do you agree with essential, or is that too high?
I can agree, but for me, it's way too high, because I'm in the camp of some of the others' thoughts that who's using it, what's the impact right now. I think it's great that they're raising a lot of money, but I feel like other companies could come out of the woodwork raising a lot as well, because I think, like it says even in the article, 383 billion by 2030. So there's money out there. But I can be convinced. But my thoughts on its own, I'd place it more like optional, important category.
Adam, do you have a strong view, or I know we've got some strong views on E?
I guess I could go with important. At the end of the day, it means that one of the big companies that was being successful is bigger and is still successful. We might want to filter out a little more to that noise in terms of what's essential, especially where it's not really clear where Mistral is going to fit into an enterprise's roadmap at this point, specifically around open source and solutions. So it's important news, but I think actually Amanda talked me off the ledge. I was getting pretty excited.
John, can you live with important?
Yep.
Great. Next.
Okay, the next one is from AI cloud startup CoreWeave. So they have again raised $642 million from JP Morgan and Fidelity. And they are a GPU cloud computing startup, and they provide the GPU cloud computing through NVIDIA's GPUs. So that's their core selling point right now.
Yeah, I'd go for optional on this one. It's interesting, but just another data center company with lots of NVIDIA chips raising lots of money. It's an indication that the money is still there. There's no slowdown in investment, at least not yet.
Yeah, and there's no slowdown in all the infrastructure, chips, hosting, employees.
Yeah, this company is a high-profile company, although a classic startup, because this company was famous originally for cryptocurrency mining.
Oh.
They already built a significant infrastructure, and then they just pivoted, as they like to say in Silicon Valley, to generative AI.
So optional.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Great. Next.
Okay, the next one is from Meta and IBM. So Meta and IBM, they have launched an AI alliance, which has more than 50 AI companies and research institution as its members. And the core objective of this alliance is to support open source innovation in the GenAI space.
Yeah, I'd go from at least important on this one. I think this is going to be the big counterweight on open in the U.S. Sphere anyway. You know.
Absolutely. I think these last three articles are kind of telling that same story. I mean, you're going to run Mistral on CoreWeave kind of a thing, and these people are going to help you and help and move that whole process along.
Yeah.
I still remain, it's still notable that this kind of B2C company Meta continues to invest heavily and find partnerships and want to be a disruptor at one level.
Absolutely. I wonder if they just want to develop models that they can use in-house and not count on other people. And then they also want to disrupt the other companies, but then also get help building these models, because I'm sure they get some benefit from having people use Llama 2 and improve it and test it and all that.
Who do they hate? So they hate TikTok then, right? So is TikTok using its own close, and they hope that open source community can get them a better model than TikTok?
I think that they just don't want to be beholden to Microsoft, OpenAI, even Google. I think that's what's going on here.
Mhm.
They, I don't know Jan LeCun, but they've been in the open source world right from the start, and I think they realized that right away they didn't want this dependency on a closed system that would be core to their business.
Yeah, I mean, like Meta's business is dwell time, right? I mean, the longer you're with them, the more ads they put in front of you, the more stuff. And I think they rightfully think that generative AI is going to allow people to create entertainment and dwell time areas in all these platforms. And so they have to be at the leading edge of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. So it sounds like important. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Next.
Okay, the next one is from NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is building an AI ecosystem in Japan. So they are saying that they will be building these AI factories in Japan, and they want to make Japan an AI hub.
And I just think this is super smart strategy. They can't go to China because of the security stuff. They can go to Japan. You know, they want an Asian presence. I think it's super smart strategy.
But is it important for the AI leader, John, to know it, or optional? I mean, so they're going to Japan.
I'd say it's optional right now, but I think it's really smart strategy.
Optional from my point of view as well. Yeah, it's going to help them, but they're in the catbird seat right now. But it's not going to have a direct impact on most of the people we're talking to.
So, Adam, you're closest to Japan. Optional.
I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, I think I'd probably say optional as well, just when I think about global enterprise.
Yeah. Okay, great. Optional next.
Okay. The next one is again NVIDIA. So AMD and Intel, they are now pushing with new AI chips, and they are trying to crack NVIDIA's dominance. But seems like the advance that NVIDIA has made till now will be difficult to crack.
I think optional on this one. It's true. AMD is going to have great time riding on the coattails of NVIDIA, but that's sure what it looks like right now. It doesn't look like they're going to make big inroads, but they'll make plenty of money.
Well, and if I'm a publicly traded company, I'm way behind. I'm pushing my PR firm to get out there and make a lot of claims, right? So,
well, I think they're real. I think this is, pick your scenario in the past. These markets do tend to concentrate heavily, but even the smaller, really much smaller players still do okay. Apple had 4% of market share against Microsoft by the time they were totally dominant. Yahoo had a tiny percentage of search share against Google really quickly, but still made a lot of money in the early days. So there's plenty of money to be made here because there's so much money floating around. But it's going to be an order of magnitude off the NVIDIA's.
And does AMD have chips now? Or is this just 2
Dude,
billion?
they just announced them last quarter. They're shipping them. They're selling billions of dollars worth of them. But
And-
NVIDIA is selling tens of billions of dollars worth of them.
And Tim, what's the gap between a NVIDIA chip and a AMD? Is it 5%, 200% performance?
I think, I would ask for Julio and Adam and Amanda to comment as well. I think it's hard to compare. It's a little bit apples to oranges. Part of NVIDIA's entrenched dominance is the infrastructure and ecosystem around their chips. So it's not just the chip itself. So I think the chip in performance are pretty close. But there's so much more that goes into fabrication of an entire system beyond the chip. And NVIDIA has an enormous advantage at that level.
But Julio, if I'm an executive and I hear my tech team's proposing to go in production with an AMD chip, not an NVIDIA chip, do I care?
I don't know if you care. I don't have hands-on experience with their top-of-the-line chips, but I think the top-of-the-line chips are as good or better than the NVIDIA chips. Just NVIDIA is entrenched. I think you would care because you'd want to make sure that all your software and all the tools you're going to use support the choices you make. And right now, that is NVIDIA. A lot of tools and things just assume NVIDIA, even though they could theoretically support other hardware.
Well, that's a good question. And so are LLM models chip agnostic?
Not entirely.
Yeah, the weights are, and the architecture is, but the code that actually implements it is not.
Right.
So you have to know whether you're deploying.
You can write yourself code that abstracts the chip layer, but it's generally not done because there's a lot. Like any system, you start taking advantage of the firmware and the libraries at the lower level, you'll get a lot of performance advantage.
So from executive standpoint, this is a slightly different than a mature database model, perhaps, where there's a little more
yeah, I would think of it like cloud computing. In theory, if you're running something on AWS versus Amazon versus Google Cloud, it doesn't matter. In practice, it actually matters a lot because the native tools are very powerful in these environments, and most people are going to use them because they are very powerful and very helpful. But once you do that, you have you have complications abstracting that layer because you've used things that are proprietary to a particular platform.
And I assume I can get either chip from my cloud provider, I bet.
I don't know that, but most cloud providers are going to do whatever they can. So the only thing that I think is, there are two things that are relevant here to an executive. One is, if you're planning a strategy for deployment, this is good news because there will be more opportunities for deployment. So a CoreWeave, which now only has NVIDIA chips, maybe could diversify. There's just more chips out there, and that's a better thing. It only goes so far, though, because again, this is like we've talked about before. You can buy another database other than Oracle. It's not so much anymore, but let's say 30 years ago or 20 years ago. But you knew you could get a lot of programmers who knew how to get an Oracle production system into production successfully and maintain it. And the same thing I think is true here. There are people out there who know the CUDA platform, the NVIDIA platform, and they know how to get it running. And there's a lot of providers, CSPs, that use these chips. So it's just more reliable if you need to get into production at scale.
Great. So I think we're hovering on important. John, Adam, is that what?
Yep.
Great. Great. Is that the last one, Ankush?
Yes, Paul. Yes, Paul.
Great. So that ends the news briefing today. I'll sign off here. Everyone stay on.